You don't need a new week. You don't need a new plan. You don't even need motivation. What you need is a decision so brutal, so final, that your old self doesn't survive the next 24 hours. Let's stop pretending for a second. If nothing changes in the next 24 hours, your life is not going to magically change next week. Yes, it won't. It's not because you're stuck, not because you're unlucky, not because life is unfair, but because you keep avoiding and escaping the one thing that would fix everything. And you already know what it is. That thing you keep delaying, that uncomfortable action, that decision you've been dancing around for weeks. Yeah, that's the door. And every time you avoid it, you lock yourself out of your own life. This is not one of those change your life slowly videos. No, this is do or die, because in the next 24 hours, you're either going to take control or prove to yourself that you never will. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But here's where people get it wrong. They hear that, they nod, and then go right back to scrolling, complaining, delaying. So let me ask you something, and don't lie to yourself this time. If your life depended on changing in the next 24 hours, no extensions, no second chances, would you still move this slow? I'm sure the answer is no. Exactly. So this video isn't here to inspire you. It's here to confront you. Because the version of you that says, "I'll start tomorrow," is the same version that's been ruining your life for months. Here's the twist nobody tells you. You're not stuck. You are undisciplined in moments that matter most. And those moments, they're small, quiet, invisible. It's not the big decisions that ruin your life. It's the tiny ones. The moment you reach for your phone instead of doing the work. The moment you say later instead of now. The moment you choose comfort again and again. That's where control is lost. Not in one big failure, but in 1,000 small betrayals. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Because your brain is very good at protecting those betrayals. It gives you excuses that sound reasonable. I'm tired. I'll do it later. I just need a break. I'm not in the right mindset. Sounds harmless, right? But that's how your life slowly slips out of your hands, without you even noticing. Psychology calls this self-justification. You create logical reasons to avoid uncomfortable action, so you don't have to face the truth. And the truth is simple. You're avoiding what would change your life. Now pause, because this is where most people click off. Not because they're bored, but because they feel exposed. So let me pull you back in for a second, because this is not about attacking you. This is about waking you up. Because if you stay with me until the end, you're going to walk away with something most people never get, which is control. Real control, not motivation, not hype. Control over your actions, even when you don't feel like it. And once you have that, your life becomes very, very hard to mess up. Remember, most people think control comes from fixing everything at once. That's wrong. Control comes from doing one thing you've been avoiding immediately. So first, we need to kill the biggest lie you've been telling yourself. I need to feel ready. No, you don't need to feel ready. That feeling is a trap, because readiness is not a requirement for action. It's a result of action. You don't wait to feel confident before you act. You act, and confidence shows up later. But most people reverse it. They sit there waiting, thinking, overthinking, analyzing, delaying, and by the time they finally decide to act, the moment is gone. Opportunity gone. Energy gone. Momentum gone. So nothing changes. Let me hit you with something direct. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. And deep down, you know that. Now here's where everything shifts. Because taking control of your life in 24 hours is not about doing everything. It's about doing the one thing that scares you the most. The one thing you've been avoiding. The one thing that, if done, would make everything else easier. And this brings us to the first real problem you need to face. You don't have a discipline problem. You have an avoidance addiction. Yeah, addiction. Let that sit for a second. Because addiction doesn't always look like drugs, or alcohol, or something extreme. Sometimes it looks like checking your phone, refreshing your feed, watching just one more video, delaying that one important task again and again. You wake up knowing what needs to be done, and somehow you don't do it. Instead, you distract yourself. You delay. You negotiate. I'll start in 10 minutes. Let me just relax first. I need to be in the right mood. And before you know it, the day is gone again. Now here's the part most people don't realize. This is not laziness. This is your brain trying to protect you from discomfort, from uncertainty, from failure. Psychology calls this avoidance coping. Your mind is wired to move away from anything that feels difficult. So when something matters, when something has pressure, when something could actually change your life, your brain panics. And it says, let's do something easier instead. And you listen every time. But here's the truth the Stoics understood. The thing you're avoiding is the thing controlling you. Yeah, hear that again. The thing you're avoiding is the exact thing controlling you. When you avoid it, it owns you. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. In other words, growth will feel uncomfortable. It will feel awkward. It will feel like you're doing it wrong. So be willing to feel uncomfortable. Be willing to look stupid. Be willing to struggle. Because that's the price of control. And most people can't handle that feeling. So they escape it. And every time they escape it, they become weaker. But you don't have that luxury anymore. Because every time you avoid something important, you train your brain to stay weak. Now let me ask you something again. What's that one thing you've been avoiding? Don't overthink it. It would come to your mind immediately. That task, that decision, that move. Yeah, that's it. Now imagine this. What happens if you actually do it? Not perfectly, not confidently. Just do it. That's not motivation. That's power. So here's the solution, and it's going to sound simple, but don't mistake simple for easy. In the next 24 hours, you will attack the one thing you've been avoiding the most. Not 5 things, not a long list. One, and you'll do it first. Not later, not after you warm up, but first. Because if you don't do it first, you won't do it at all. Now here's where your brain will try to escape again. It will say, let me prepare, let me plan, let me think it through. No, that's another trap. Because preparation feels like progress, but it's just another form of avoidance. So here's the rule. You start before you feel ready. You start immediately, even if it's messy, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't know what you're doing. Because here's the twist nobody tells you. Action doesn't come from motivation. Motivation comes from action. And the moment you take action, even for 5 minutes, you break the psychological resistance that's been controlling you. But don't relax yet. Here's where most people still mess up. They start, and then they stop too early. They do a little, feel a little proud, and then go right back to comfort. And that's why nothing changes. Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. You don't need more time. You need less distraction. So here's your rule for the next 24 hours. Once you start the task you've been avoiding, you don't stop when it gets uncomfortable. You stop when it's done, or when you've pushed further than you ever have before. Because that moment, that exact moment where you want to quit, that's where control is built. Now, think about it. If you can override your own resistance once, what does that say about you? And if you could do it twice, 3 times, do you see where this is going? This is how identity changes. Not by thinking differently, but by proving to yourself through action that you're someone who does hard things. And once that shift happens, everything else starts to fall into place. But we're not done yet, because even if you do this right, there's another trap waiting for you. one that silently destroys your progress. It makes you feel like you're moving forward when you're actually standing still. And if you don't catch it in the next few hours, you'll undo everything you just started. Listen carefully, because this next part is where most people lose control again. Yeah, this is where most people quietly lose everything they just started. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently. You begin, you take action, you push through that initial resistance. And for a moment, it feels different. You feel focused, in control, almost proud. And then something shifts. A tiny voice creeps in. You've done enough. And just like that, you slow down. Not because you're tired, not because you can't continue, but because your brain just gave you permission to stop. And you listened. You've probably felt it before. That little sense of progress. That fake momentum. You do one task, maybe two, and suddenly your brain whispers, "Yeah, I've done enough for today." And just like that, you slow down. You reward yourself too early. You open your phone. You relax. You take a break that turns into hours. And by the end of the day, nothing really changed. Be honest, how many times has that happened? This is the second problem. You are addicted to false progress and false completion. You confuse movement with achievement. You confuse effort with completion. You confuse starting with finishing. And your brain loves this because it gives you the illusion of growth without forcing you to face real discomfort. It gives you a reward without demanding a result. Psychology calls this a dopamine loophole or dopamine leak. Every time you start something, your brain releases a small hit of satisfaction for incomplete actions. So you feel like you've done something meaningful, even when you haven't. And those tiny rewards trick your brain into thinking, "We're good. No need to push further." Therefore, it kills your hunger. It lowers your intensity. It tricks you into stopping early. Now here's the dangerous part. The more you repeat this pattern, the more your brain gets trained to quit halfway. You literally build the identity of someone who doesn't finish. Not because you decided to, but because you practiced it over and over again. Here is the truth Stoics live by. Half effort is self-deception. Marcus Aurelius said, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being,' not part of it. Not just enough. The work. Fully. Completely." So here's the solution, and this one is non-negotiable. For the next 24 hours, you do not celebrate starting. You only respect finishing. Let that hit and sink in. Starting is easy and not special. Anyone can start, but finishing? That's rare. That's where control lives. So before you even begin your task, you define what done means. Clearly, no vagnis. No, I'll try, but specific. I will finish this. I will send this. I will complete this section. And until that is done, you don't reward yourself. No scrolling. No breaks that turn into escapes. No, just checking something quickly, because you already know how that story ends. Now here comes the resistance again, and it will hit you harder this time. Your mind will say, "This is too much. I need a break. I can't focus anymore. I'll do the rest later." And this is the moment most people fail. Not because they can't continue, but because they believe their feelings too much. Because that is their comfort zone fighting for survival. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. In simple terms, stop talking about discipline. Show it." And discipline is not what you do when it's easy. It's what you do when everything inside you says, "Stop." So here's the rule. When you feel like quitting, you don't stop immediately. You push a little further. Not forever, just further than you want to. Because that moment, that exact moment where your mind says enough, that's where control is built. That's where identity shifts. Now, think about this. If you can override that feeling once, just once, what does that prove? It proves that you're not controlled by your emotions. And if you do it again and again, do you see what's happening? You're rewriting who you are, not by thinking differently, but by acting differently. This is how real change happens, not through motivation, through repetition of hard decisions. But wait, there's another trap, and this one is even more subtle, because it doesn't feel like failure. It feels reasonable. It sounds like this: let me slow down so I don't burn out. I don't want to push too hard. I need to be realistic. And just like that, you lower your standard. You reduce your effort. You dilute your intensity. This is the third problem. You are obsessed with comfort disguised as balance. You are obsessed with permanence. You convinced yourself that going all in is dangerous, that pushing hard is unsustainable, that intensity is something to avoid. So you lower your intensity. You play safe. You hold back, because deep down, you're afraid of proving something to yourself and then losing it. But let me ask you something. Has playing it safe improved your life so far? Has being balanced made you disciplined? Has taking it slow made you consistent? Or has it kept you stuck, just comfortably enough to not change? Exactly. This will hit hard. You don't need forever. You need proof. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Right now, you're imagining burnout in the future, imagining failure in the future, imagining that you can't keep this up. And those thoughts, they weaken your effort in the present, before anything has even happened. So here's the shift. For the next 24 hours, you forget about balance. You forget about consistency. You forget about sustainability. You forget about, can I keep this up? This is not your forever plan. This is your proof day. For the next 24 hours, you go all in, fully focused, fully committed, fully locked in, not comfortable, not relaxed, not half effort, all in. Because this is not about building a perfect routine. This is about breaking your current identity. This is about showing yourself, I can be disciplined. I can stay focused. I can finish what I start, even if it's just for one day. Because that one day changes everything. But don't relax yet. Because even if you do all of this right, even if you beat avoidance, even if you finish what you start, even if you go all in, there's still one final trap waiting for you. And this one resets everything. This is where everything either locks in or falls apart completely. Because most people can push for a few hours, some can even push for a full day, but they still wake up the next morning and go right back to their old life. Why? Because they missed this last step. And if you miss it too, everything you've done in these 24 hours will fade. So don't relax yet, because this final shift is what turns a temporary win into real control. Now listen carefully, because this is the part almost nobody talks about. You can push hard for a few hours. You can fight your urges. You can even dominate an entire day and still wake up the next morning and become the same person again. Not weaker, not broken, just unchanged. That's because you didn't lock it in. And that's the part nobody warns you about. Because the real battle isn't starting. It's not even finishing. It's who you believe you are when it's all over. This is the final problem. You rely on intensity, but you ignore identity. You think control comes from forcing yourself over and over again. So you say things like, I just need to stay disciplined. I need more motivation. I'll try to keep this going. Listen, that version of you, it's already losing, because willpower fades, motivation disappears, and effort without identity doesn't stick. Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Meaning, what you repeatedly do, what you repeatedly tolerate, what you repeatedly accept, that becomes you. So if you spend 24 hours acting like someone focused, sharp, disciplined, but deep down you still think, I am inconsistent, I always fall off, this isn't really me, then guess what happens? You snap back. Every time. Psychology also backs this up. It called this identity congruence. Your brain is constantly trying to match your behavior. to your self-image. So if your self-image is weak, your actions will slowly adjust to match it. That's why people relapse. That's why people lose momentum. That's why people say, I was doing so well, and then I just stopped. But that's not completely true. You didn't stop. You returned to who you believed you were. Now listen carefully, because this is the part almost nobody talks about. You can push hard for a few hours. You can fight your urges. You can even dominate an entire day, and still wake up the next morning and become the same person again. Not weaker, not broken, just. So here's the shift, and this is where you separate yourself from everyone else watching this. At the end of your 24 hours, you shouldn't celebrate yet. You shouldn't relax yet. You shouldn't just move on yet. You sit down, and you decide who you are now, not based on feelings, not based on hope, based on proof. You look at what you just did. You faced what you were avoiding. You acted without waiting. You finished what you started. You pushed past discomfort. That's not normal. That's not average. That's not trying. That's identity. So you say it clearly. I finish what I start. I act even when I don't feel like it. I don't run from discomfort anymore. Not hype, not motivation, but evidence. And once your brain accepts that as truth, something shifts. The next time you hesitate, there's a voice that cuts through the noise. That's not who I am anymore. And that voice, that's control. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Most people get this backwards. They try to act differently without ever deciding who they are. But when it comes to you, you did both. You acted, and now you decide. That's how you break the cycle. Now pause for a second. If you can control your actions for 24 hours, override your emotions, finish what you start, and redefine who you are, what exactly is stopping you after that? Think, because the answer is uncomfortable. Nothing. There's no secret, no hidden trick, no missing piece, just decisions. And that's the part people don't like, because it removes every excuse. From this point forward, it's on you. No more I'll start tomorrow. No more I'm not ready. No more I'll try. You've already proven what you're capable of. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Now here's where it gets real. Going back to your old habits will start to feel wrong, heavy, frustrating, almost embarrassing. Like you're betraying a version of yourself that you know is real. And that tension, that's good. That means you've changed. Seneca said, cling tooth and nail to the following rule: not to give in to adversity. Life will test you again. Tomorrow, next week, next month, you'll feel resistance. You'll feel doubt. You'll feel that pull to go back. Good. That's your training. Because now you understand something most people never will. You are not controlled by your feelings. You are revealed by your actions. So here's what you're going to do. Right now. Not later. Not after this video ends. Now, pick the one thing you've been avoiding. Don't think too much. You already know it. Define what done looks like. Clearly. Remove every distraction. Put your phone away. Close the tabs. Shut the noise out. And then, attack it. Not casually, not slowly, not let me try. Attack it like this is your last chance to prove something to yourself. Because in a way, it is. And if you actually do this, fully, honestly, without cheating yourself, you won't just feel different. You'll be different. Now before you go, let me pull you back in for 1 second, because this is where most people ruin everything. They watch this, they feel something, they agree, and then they do nothing. Don't be that person, that version of you. It's done. If this hit you even a little, prove it. Go do the work. And when you're done, come back and comment. 24 hours done. Not for me, for you. Because that comment, that's evidence that you're no longer the person who watches and stays the same. And if you want more of this, not motivation, not soft advice, but real, sharp, uncomfortable truth that actually forces you to move, Subscribe to Stoic Quiet Strength, because here, we don't talk about discipline. We become it. We don't chase motivation here. We build control. Now go. Your 24 hours have already started.